Here, as you see, I got my king offset behind my 4020 tractor, backed up pretty close to the shop here, but I've got it on flat ground out there. And the trick to getting the axle bolt off is you've got to put a big enough pipe wrench on one of the axle spacers to stop it from turning. And I've done this successfully in the past by getting the wrench bound up against the frame and then using a bungee cord to tie the wrench to the frame. But the problem is, I bought this cheap made in China piece of crap pipe wrench, and the teeth are all messed up on it, so it's not wanting to bite and lock down. I'm trying a little act of desperation. I really don't want to spend my afternoon riding up to Raleigh to buy another wrench, and if I did ride up to Raleigh to buy another wrench, I sure wouldn't buy one of these pieces of junk made in China piece of crap. Anyhow, you probably laugh, but what I'm up to is I've got a little triangle shaped rat tail file here, and I'm trying to cut a sharp enough edge back on these so that they will bite. And I can use, if I can get one use out of this wrench this afternoon, I'll be happy. Actually, I want two, because I'm going to want to put the thing back together. Okay, you can see them shined up now, and I can feel I've got a little better edge on there. I think it might bite. So I'm about ready to go out there and try it. Yeah, I found the handle to my file. Well, that's what I was talking about, binding that wrench up right there like that and tying it on with the bungee cord. Of course, if you got cousin Scott over here to help you, he can just take his hand and put right there and hold that. Now, what we got here is big adjustable wrench and our friend the pipe extender. And guess what, folks? It worked. I'm pushing and the bolt is turning. Diggity dog. I bet. Yeah. But talk about delighted. Look at there. Coming right off. That. Uh-oh. That won't good. Yep. There's supposed to be a big giant washer here, and it needs to be in one piece. And mine is now in 3 pieces. So we get to go buy a new washer. Okay, well that was fantastic. I did spray that with PB Blaster about an hour ago, so, and it did take a right good little push to make it go. All right, turn that nut off, please. Thank you, Lord. God is good. Hot diggity dog. And it all fell apart. That was sweet. Now, there's the washer, there's the nut, and there's the U-bolt. This is how far along I am, and God and I did all that on 1 cup of coffee. So it's time for a coffee refill, and that nut's already loose. So now it's just a matter of spinning that off and pulling everything off one at a time, all the way down to here. That's what's called inside bearing. No, it couldn't have been the outside bearing. It had to be the inside bearing. All right, a little more progress being made. Now, this is a mental note to me. The way I got this laid out, that blade goes on 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Bearing goes in between those 2. All right, and the spacers are laid out like they go back on, so don't turn them around. Makes it wrong when you do that. Now, get down here and take a look at this bearing. And first observation of what I saw, this thing's all to pieces. That would have been the seal, and of course it's come out. And looking down here at the bearing itself is actually broken here and here. And let's see, gloves are wonderful things when you use them. And it's stuck. Gonna take some persuading to get it off of there. I mean, probably a little hammering. It's just the way, actually it's broke right there too. It's just the way it's, the way it is. Okay, turned it upside down, tapped it with a hammer, and it fell right out. And the bearing itself is just disintegrated. That's inside race. It broke all up in a bunch of pieces there. Get all these little ball bearings to play with. Now, what I'm hoping to be able to do, I've got two options. There lays the old bearing that came off this thing years ago. I've been spraying this in it, but I still can't turn it. Thinking about going over there and sticking it on the shaft and seeing if I can turn it. It was a good bearing when it came off of there. The other option is these two bearings right here. As you can see, that turns. It's not gnarly sounding. And that one, it turns and it's not gnarly sounding. These were the best two bearings out of the thing the last time it was rebuilt, so I saved them. So I can either fight to get that race out of there, because these housings, they are tight. Not a lot of fun. It might come right out. Don't know until I try. Or I can go see if I can get this to turn, and then I can just slap that right in there. But broken parts, nasty. That was a complete and total what you call bearing failure. I need to go look at that shaft and see what caused this. But it's 4 pieces there. Can't think of no use for that, so goodbye. And all the little ball bearings, they're real cute. Goodbye. There's another fragment. Goodbye. And it would be so wonderful if I can beat that race out of there. It looks a whole lot, folks, like I'm going to get the option I really wanted, which was one of those bearings that turns. I've been beating on this for a few minutes, and I've got it to the point now where I believe I can get it out. Of course, it broke. Cheap. I can see that this is just cheap, sorry metal, which causes me some concern about the rest of the bearings that I put in this disc 2 years ago. There we go. And she comes out. Alright, let's clean this thing up good so the other one will go in there. A little bit of wire brush time. Yeah, they've got nice sharp ridges on them, so when you lock something down in it, it stays in place. No more of that slipping around like the old vise was doing, so that tells me I did the right thing when I bought myself a new vise. Yeah, if this is cleaned up good, the other bearing will tap right in. And then I can put it all back together, and I've got my good disc back. I'm excited. Bearing went together really nice. Didn't film that because last time Jeff Raymond watched Cousin Scott and I out here beating and banging on these things, we weren't wearing safety glasses. Jeff pointed that out and talked about a horrible accident that had happened to him. So I thought about that and I put on my safety glasses. So anyhow, thanks Jeff. Now we're back to putting these things back on there. And since I laid them out in order and made a note about the order, yeah, slide on down there. Thank you. That, and that's what I was afraid of. Oh well, I'll get it back on there. And that, like that, which means I'm going to need to stand that up to get it to tighten up. Where's the big nut? There it is. That's probably going to be over there. Be back in a minute, folks. At this point, I got the game back together. That nut on there is hand tight. Game was standing up on end when I tightened it. And now you're into the fine tuning of adjustment here to get things to line back up. And when you're by yourself, you got to use something other than brute strength, because I'll tell you something, that thing's heavy. So what I'm attempting to do here with that chain is lift this thing just enough that I can move it where I need to move it. And this is the first attempt, so let's see what happens. I'm not sure if I'm balanced or not. Probably not. No, not balanced. This side came up. But that worked out really well, because now I see about how I'm off. That needs to come out that way a little bit. Yep. Here I am, really close. Kept working with it and working with it with the chain, lifting and lowering and playing with the center. And went and got the come along jack here and put it to the back of the truck and pulled it over this way, and that helped. But I've run into a situation where that scraper and that scraper are hitting the disc, because I had them set so tight when this bar was actually down, and when I drop the bar any lower I can't get another chain loop. So take this loose and move them out of the way. These scrapers were keeping me from getting into my final adjustment, so I had to break all these bolts loose. Got to use my pneumatic impact wrench again. It was pretty cool. You can see the rust, they were pretty stuck, but they're all out of the way now, and I am just about spot on to where I need to be. Real close. It's been a seriously fun project. I've got that U-bolt's back in, and the nuts are on tight enough to keep it from dropping out of place. The issue now is the axle bolt is not tight, and since it's not tight, this bearing housing is not lining up in that direction with the holes. It's lined up like that, but I'm gonna have to tighten that nut to push it over that way. So we're back to trying to get one more use out of that cheap piece of junk called a pipe wrench. If it'll bite one more time and let me tighten that nut and move that housing over, I can slip that U-bolt right up through there. Well, you can probably tell by the fact that I'm losing my light, it took me a while. Last report I was celebrating having those two nuts in and that U-bolt in, but this one fought me. We were talking about tightening up this here nut to pull the axle together, and I had to jump up and down on that, and my little 100 and what I weighed last time I weighed, I think I weighed 179 pounds, but I was bouncing on this pipe stuck out on the end of this thing, and I managed to get them laterally lined up, but somehow the U-bolt was spread. I mean, I could see everything going together, but that U-bolt was spread. So I put the nuts on the end of the U-bolt and got out here on this solid frame, and that's an 8-pound maul, and I managed to beat that sucker closed until it would slide up in there. Yep, lock washer under the nut, lock washer under the nut. All I got to do now is torque it all down, and I'm done, repaired. Let's see, 825.